A word with you, Sirrah.
Dude, what did you call me? Stop talking like that.
Well, I have a philosophical question.
Oh, I love those. Go ahead.
Okay, do you think our social station is circumountable or is it immutable?
Oh, good question. Immutable.
No, but don't you think we can overcome our circumstance given sufficient cunning and skill?
No, I don't. But I'm not like you, yearning to fly beyond nature's boundaries like some sort of disabled nerd Icarus. Anyway, why do you ask?
No reason, Buckingham. Buck Barbie B. It's just that I've got plans for a date.
A date? You? Who's gonna date you?
Well, I was thinking of grabbing a date to the Sadie Hawkins.
Oh, I get it. You think by going to the dance, you'll seem like less of a creepy Renaissance fair talking weirdo?
Well, and I'll rise past my circumstance, yes.
I like it. I can help if you want. Oh, do you want to go with me to the dance? Not as like a date or whatever, but as like friends?
I'll pass.
Okay. Whatever, jerkface. Sound like I wanted to be the matchy-matchy disabled couple.
Fine.
Fine? Okay. You do know the Sadie Hawkins dance is where the girl asks the guy out, right? And I'm like the only girl that talks to you.
Oh, that's fine. I was thinking of going with Anne.
And Margaret? But she's the most popular girl in school.
Formerly the most popular. Eddie broke up with her over winter break.
So what? She's still super out of your league.
Is she, Buck? Is she? Or maybe it's just that you don't know what league that I'm in.
No, she's out of your league. She's hot, she's smart, she's super talented. You know she's a quasi-professional dancer?
But now she's in wounded bird mode. See, if I can get her to ask me to the dance, then I will instantly vault past my current and glorious station.
You won't.
And for once, people might see me.
Okay, Richard, if you had to ask Anne to the dance, that would already be a humiliating rejection situation. But getting her to ask you, what's your angle? Hypnosis or cash?
Buck.
Plus, why Eddie's ex-girlfriend? Is it like a copycat thing? Revenge thing? Sex thing? Is it a sex revenge copycat thing? Wait, Richard, is this a scheme?
What?
You're always scheming. Are you running for president?
What?
Oh my God! Is getting a date with Anne Margaret the first step in some elaborate multi-step scheme for getting elected senior class president? It is, isn't it? Confess!
Well, no. Buck, it's not a scheme. I just want a date.
Yeah, and I want Chris Evans to sit on my face. Only he has to ask.
Well, who is Chris?
Chris Evans is Captain America. He's been Captain America for like 19 movies. I'm sorry, do you watch movies or are you too busy tuned into the voices inside your head?
Soft you now, she approaches.
Soft you now? Who talks like that?
Away with you, Buck.
All right, whatever, pal. Follow your dreams.
Well, Buck's right, of course. Landing a date with Anne Margaret is part of an elaborate multi-step scheme. If I can capture Eddie's ex-girlfriend, the people will know that I am a most redoubtable knave. Someone who's not to be fucked with. And so, Roseland High School, prepare for your fate. My first step to power is to land a first date. Oh, Anne, I believe you had something you wanted to ask me.
I did?
So go ahead.
I really can't think of anything. Can you get out of my way?
Oh, nope, that's not it.
I don't know what your deal is, but I'm not into guessing games, Richard.
Oh, this isn't a game, it's an invitation. So go ahead, invite me to Sadie Hawkins. All you have to do is ask.
Excuse me? Look, I know you're differently abled, but you gotta know that's not happening.
But why, Anne?
Because I don't like you?
You don't even know me. I mean, we've known each other since middle school, but this is the most that we've talked.
You're right, I don't know you, so why would I ask you out? Because I pity you?
Whoa, no one's asking for pity here. Why, do you pity me? Or do you fear me? Are you afraid you'll contract cerebral palsy just by the very taint of my touch?
Quit that.
See? You hate me for what I am.
No, I don't. Richard, I don't mean to be mean. I'm just trying to stay in my lane here, you know?
Well, which is it, Anne? Pity me, hate me, or fear me?
I don't even know you. I nothing you.
Exactly. I'm not even relevant here. See, the real reason you're going to ask me to Sadie Hawkins is because it's the best way to get back at Eddie.
Eddie? But I don't want to get back at Eddie.
Really? Even though he was hardcore dating you all through winter break, only to immediately start dating Liz Woodville?
Eddie's dating Liz? No, he's not.
Clearly, you don't follow Liz Woodville on Instagram.
Whatever, it's done now. He can date who he wants.
Well, I've seen you on campus, Anne. Seen the happy-go-lucky social butterfly cocooning herself in a chrysalis of melancholy and doubt.
Yeah, well, it's been a really hard year.
Oh, which is why it's so brave of you soldiering on like this. You know something, Anne? I've never known the tender pleasures of dating.
Really?
But then again, I've never been unceremoniously dumped.
Is that what people are saying?
Well, that's right, and he's still the most popular person in school, whereas you are nothing now.
I'm not nothing. I'm just me.
Well, being you isn't enough, not in this Roseland wasteland. If Eddie and Liz Woodville go to the dance, what's your counterattack?
Why do I even need a counterattack? I swear to God, high school drama is such bullshit.
Ask me to the dance. If you go with me, everyone will see what a good person you are. That you did the selfless good deed of taking Richard the cripple to his very first dance. I'm your charm offensive.
Okay, but if I did go with you, I'd only be doing it to be a good person. It doesn't mean that we're like dating.
Well, not yet.
Not ever.
Not ever. Yet.
God, Richard, what kind of crazy fantasies go on in that head?
So many, and you have no idea. So, what's it gonna be?
Fine. Richard, will you go to Sadie Hawkins with me?
No.
No? You fucking ass crack!
No, I can't go to the dance with you, Anne, because I never learned how to dance.
Oh. Well, could I teach you or something? I do have a dance background.
It's a date!
But it's not.
Ooh, spicy, Anne. Methinks the lady doth protest too much.
I think I'm protesting just right.
Hey, Anne.
Jesus, what?
You're a good person.
Thanks.
Did you fucking see that? Was ever woman so easily won? Woo! We're gonna be like Lancelot and Guinevere, Pyramus and Thisbe, Michelle and Barack. I'm Gregg Mozgala, and I'm playing Richard.
Hi.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
That's really nice. Thanks, Charlie.
Hi, I'm Tiffany Villarin, and I'm playing Anne Margaret in the show.
I'm Marinda Anderson, and I play Elizabeth, Miss York, also known as Miss York.
I'm Shannon DeVido, and I play Buck.
Wonderful. Well, I hope you all enjoyed the scene. I know some people have actually been to the show already. If you haven't, go get your tickets now. It's selling out really fast, and they've already announced an extension, actually. So you can go and get tickets. So Teenage Dick is a modern retelling of Richard III, Shakespeare's Richard III. You probably recognize some of the dialogue. So let's talk about the title, right? I know it caused a little bit of hand-wringing. Gregg, you actually commissioned the play from Mike Liu.
That's right. Yeah. And he mentioned in the video, right? It was as simple as that. I just thought, Mike, I want you to write Richard III set in high school and call it Teenage Dick. So yeah. So I run a theater company called The Apathy, and we focus on plays that we produce works that explore and illuminate the disabled experience, which is really an exploration to figure out what that is. And I thought, you know, Richard III is arguably the most famous disabled character in Western dramatic literature, so he's a great character to sort of take on and explore.
You mentioned Apathy. Where did that name come from?
So the inspiration for the namesake of the company, there was a disabled playwright named John Beluso who had worked in theater extensively and was also writing for shows like Deadwood on HBO and some network shows. He actually passed away in 2006, and in 2007 I was in the New York premiere of a show of his called The Rules of Charity, and a character actually mentions the Apathy, which was a place in ancient Sparta in Greece where, you know, the Spartans were known for their very sort of fascistic physical worldview, right? They were a very militaristic society. So if you didn't fit that worldview, the Apathy was a place, a chasm in the ground where disabled and deformed infants were left to the elements. So it roughly translates to the place of exposure. And I'm just like, I thought that was really beautiful. And I'm playing on that double entendre to shed light into dark places and also expose or make visible the disabled experience or make the history of disabled people more visible.
Mm-hmm. And we talked a little bit earlier about authentic casting. Mm-hmm. And if we think about stories that feature a disabled character, so often these narratives fall in a very few limited number of buckets, inspirational, overcoming adversity. Why do you think these narratives are so pervasive in our culture?
Whoa. That's a big question. Well, I think again, this is an incredibly representational cast, right? And I think that was intentional, and by partnering with Mai, which is an Asian American theater company, right? We have this incredible cast and production team that is diverse, ethnically, gender, ability, just all kinds of ways, which is really great. I think, and I can't speak on the being Asian American or African American, but from a disability perspective, I think disability is very hard to deal with. I mean, there's a lot of anxiety around the issue and the topic. It's not discussed or hasn't been discussed as openly as the experience of other marginalized groups, because that work is being done for decades and decades and decades now, and we're disabilities behind in that regard. But the pervasive narratives are being an inspiration, overcoming adversity, or death with dignity, And I think those are sort of the three buckets that I would put these in. I don't know, not to be a downer, but I think the context of disability is not a geographic location or like a specific culture, right? But the context of disability is illness, trauma, pain, and death. So that's difficult. That can be difficult to deal with because it reminds one of their own vulnerability and ultimately their own mortality, I think. Which again that can be a difficult pill to swallow. But I think there's great. That can be seen as a deficit, or that can be seen as a great strength, Because if someone has undergone trauma and becomes disabled, that's difficult, yes. But the flip side of that is that they've had an encounter with death and beat it, and I think there's great strength in that. Mm-hmm. And so I'm interested in focusing on both the dark and the light and all the spaces in between.
Excellent. Now you mentioned Mai is very focused on diversity and representation in the arts in general, not just on stage, but off stage as well, in the crew, in writing, and directing. There's been a lot of stories in the media lately about movies in particular and TV and representation in those roles, either be a traditional role being played by a white actor. How, and Shannon and I were having a quick conversation about this earlier, and you never want to take work away from people, but you also want to be in control of the narrative that you identify with. So how do you guys kind of handle that in your day-to-day and in going to casting calls and choosing productions you work on?
I think one of the reasons why I love being an actor in New York is Mai Theater, because they are the largest gathering of Asian American playwrights in history, in the country, in the world. And I feel very fortunate to be able to have gotten to know a lot of them, a lot of those playwrights, and to be on the ground level of new works that they're creating. Because that conversation about representation and about being in charge of our narratives and not having the narrative always be about explaining my race for white people, frankly, is at the top of that awareness for those writers, and it's important work, I think, to be doing, and Mike is he's the head of that program, right? He's the head of the Mai's Writers Lab right now, and I think that this play in particular is doing all of those things on all the different levels, not just about race, but also about ability and disability, and
it also happens to be incredibly smart and funny too.
And it's smart and it's funny, and that's it's all of those levels of things, and it's Shakespeare. So people who laugh at the funny inside Shakespeare jokes I'm like, oh, you're the Shakespeare nerd. I hear you. And like, so it's all in there, and that's the work that I want to be involved in, and that I think is the future of like what audiences want to experience, or like that's the possibility. That's where theater could go, where storytelling could go in that direction. Yeah. Anything you want to add?
No, I agree with that. Yeah, I mean, being an actor, going into these auditions, you know, a lot of the times, you know, you do get into a play, and a lot of the times they're not really welcoming of your experience as for me as a Black woman into the room. You know what I mean? It's like, yay, we want to be diverse, yay, but you know what I mean? Can I also bring myself into it as well? And that's not been this experience at all. It's so inclusive, and I feel very welcomed and feel very represented, and not in a way of like, I'm Black, you know what I mean? Just like, I'm a teacher and I'm doing my job, you know what I mean? I don't have to explain it.
Yeah.
Look at what you were saying, I don't have to explain what I am and who I am. And with this play, it's just all, like you said, it's all there. It's just brilliant and so easy to dive into and have so much fun. So I feel very welcome.
Marinda, you mentioned that you play the teacher,
Yes.
Miss York. So your character, you guys really should go watch the play. Your character has these really great moments where you're cringing at kind of some of the moments, and then you're just laughing out loud. You know, I'm not going to give any spoilers, but you have a.
I'm cringing. You're cringing.
You're cringing kind of at
yes.
some of the lines and the gestures. But then toward the latter end of the show, you have this spectacular kind of solo moment where I feel like Miss York really kind of finds her own. You're also kind of the only adult in the room, if you will. You know, everyone else is a high school teenager. So what was it like kind of playing that adult in such an ensemble show?
It's funny because I was like, oh, this is so fun. It's like, you know, set in high school, and I don't actually know how old everyone is, but I assume we're all actually the same age-ish. But I was like, oh, yeah, we get to play teens. I'm like, oh, no, I have to be the adult person. And it's funny because I'm also the deputy, and I'm also like the fight captain. So it's funny how
All the responsibility.
I all of a sudden became the responsible one, which is not
You do it.
me as Marinda. So, but it's funny how that just kind of seeped on over. But it's been fun. I've actually never
We get what we deserve and we get what we're ready for.
Thank you, Greg. I never felt like the adult in the room, though, during rehearsal. I just felt like one of the clowns, just, you know, having fun. So I don't really feel like the teacher. I mean, in those moments of like, oh God, what is she doing? I'm like, oh, that's when the awareness comes in, I guess. But it's just such an ensemble. I don't really feel like, oh, I'm like the adult playing the adult here, but yeah. Did I answer your question? I'm so bad at that.
No, you mentioned you're a deputy and a fire warden. Like,
Yes, fire warden. I am that too.
gosh,
As of today, I'm a fire warden.
Just hold it very well.
No, we are in a union, the Actors Equity Union, and each show has a deputy. So it's like, if anything, any troubles arise, they come to me. And I told them, don't come to me. Don't do it. But it's always that thing at the beginning of rehearsals where like, who wants to be the deputy? And everyone's like, well, you know, I did it before. I don't really need to do it again. And so I just went ahead and volunteered. And then I also became the fight captain to make sure people stay safe while there are a few little tiffs in the show. So I just make sure we stay safe.
Gotcha. Now, you had mentioned earlier, you know, you have a fight call earlier before the show. And there are some fight scenes, some dance scenes. There's a lot of choreographed kind of elements to the show. What kind of special training did you guys have to go through to prepare for that? You know, the choreographers you brought in, kind of what was that experience like?
Well, we have, so neither Tiffany nor I have a dance background.
Professional dancers in no way.
Yeah, right. Right. So it's, but I mean, I have had experience. I was in a dance piece several years ago, but that was it. I mean, I was hired as an actor to be in that dance piece and had to sort of learn all those skills. But this was a very different style. I mean, it's all great high school stories should end at a high school dance, and you know, Teenage Dick does.
Yes.
And so, and I mean, again, you saw in that scene, it's like their relationship. Most of their scenes take place within Anne's dance studio, where she is teaching Richard how to dance, and they meet through the body, right? And I think it's really beautiful of Mike what he's constructed here, because they develop this really incredible level of intimacy that isn't that later becomes sort of romantic, but doesn't start that way. But yeah, we had two incredible choreographers, Jen Weber, who worked on my production, oh my God, K-pop, right, which was about Korean pop, the Korean pop scene, and Liz Tenuto, associate choreographer, and we just
We started every rehearsal with 90 minutes of dance.
Yeah.
So the first week I was like, oh my God, these muscles I've
we
felt
were hurting.
before. You know? And now we just built it up. We're like, okay, I can do this.
Yeah, but again, I mean, that's what the difference between dancers and actors is. Dancers practice their craft every day. Like if you're not in a show, you go and you go to the bar and like you take a class. Like actors aren't that disciplined.
We also go to a bar.
Right. Yeah.
Marinda and I were at the bar while you.
Yes.
Yeah.
We were rehearsing.
Sure.
They were at the bar.
We're brunching.
Yeah.
Join them later.
We come from a long line of people who have
We're
never
very
picked up
trained.
a fork. You know? So yeah. But yeah, I think it's just another element to the play. Again, I think because of the high school nature of it, the ending at prom or like the big spring fling or whatever, you know, you have to have that. And Mike said in a conversation the other day that because Richard III ends at the Battle of Bosworth is the big climactic event, right? And so he said he was transplanting sort of the world of the high school dance into the Shakespearean sort of battlefront. And I thought that was really, really amazing. I just really love that idea. So, but yeah, we drilled and drilled and drilled. Yeah.
Excellent. Movement is such a theme of the show in different ways. And actually, Shannon, I know we talked about this earlier, but you had a really funny role on the Hulu show, RIP, Difficult People. We'll pour one out for Difficult People. That really, they cast you as a comedian. You know, it wasn't written for someone in a wheelchair. It was cast for comedian. And then in this role, Buck is traditionally played by a man, and you're playing it as a woman. So in
I
this
was originally a man.
yes,
Right.
Little boy.
Yeah.
I was a little boy.
Right. Well, I had known Shannon for a couple years prior to this, and Mike did not know her. So she was always from the genesis of it was like, we're going to use Shannon DeVido. But I think, Mike wasn't sure. But as soon as he discovered how wonderful Shannon was, it was a match.
I was allowed to be a girl.
So in this show, you kind of bring this robust reinterpretation to the role, and you're cast kind of for your talents as an actor, but you bring this really wonderful, almost secondary character with you to the stage, you know. And we've brought up before, Shannon has this great scene where she's giving Richard the finger and rolling away, and it's just this epic fade. And it's such a it's really, really, really well done. Your comedic timing is so on point. So how did you kind of bring that unique choreography to the role, and how did you work with the other actors and the choreographers to kind of stage that?
That's a very interesting question because I don't think about it. I didn't really work with the choreographers at all. It's kind of, it's funny because a lot of the reviews also like touched on that, how it's just kind of part of the world of kind of how I live. And I love that they are kind of seeing that because a wheelchair is often kind of put into this world where it's a hindrance or wheelchair bound is often a term that is used that we need to stop using, but it is. And that it like you're tied to it and it's this horrible thing, but like I love that people are noticing that it's so freeing and it's a part of me. It's just kind of like, I don't know, it flows through me. Like actors often talk about being in their bodies when they're acting, and I feel like for so many years when I was in acting classes, they wanted me to be like in just my body, and I appreciate that, but I feel like my wheelchair is an extension of that, and I really get the ability to kind of utilize that on the stage in the show, and I think a lot of my comedy comes through like with that. So it's pretty cool that I got that ability to show people that it's not a hindrance; it's actually a freeing wonderful thing.
Can I add to that a little bit?
Please.
I think, yeah, the comment on how people respond to the reviews is, the reviews have been fantastic, but again, I think people are amazed that I can dance, and I think, and I'm not sort of calling anybody out, but this sort of idea, I think it's just, you haven't seen it.
Right.
There are plenty of like amazing, actors and dancers. There's a dancer named Alice Shepard who's a wheelchair dancer who's on the cover of Dance Magazine this month. You just haven't, it's not in the sort of cultural zeitgeist. Like it hasn't been shared or displayed as much. So people, it's so new, it's almost revelatory, right? And again, the sort of vocabulary, the language about how to, right? I think if you just saw it more and more and more and more, that would fade away and people would just say, Shannon is a physical and verbal comedic, actor, and she has a great genius in that sense. And I consider myself a rigorous physical actor because I've done all. I throw myself around all the time, but people seem so amazed that and it's just a common conception about disability. You're so amazed that you can get to the store or get to your job or have a life or whatnot. And, if the theater is just sort of a reflection of our lives, then, oh my God, look what these people can do on stage. I think that's why having the narratives, right, that are more nuanced, more thought out, again, where the disabled people themselves have agency and can inhabit roles that are closer to themselves, actually help to move that needle forward. And it starts a discussion. We're having a discussion right now about this, right? And this discussion itself is pretty unprecedented. Like I never imagined I would be at Google, talking about a play that came to life with these incredible people, So I just think but again, it's about proximity and it's just about visibility. And again, why I think Mai, right? And work within the African American community, within the theater community, any marginalized group, right? They understood we have to tell our own stories, right? Or our own stories in partnership with others. But the plays and the plays and the plays and the plays, like the narrative is what moves the culture forward, and then hopefully society forward too. When it's working well together, they're both moving like this.
You mentioned agency, which is actually something I'd like to talk to Tiffany about. Women in Shakespearean plays are often side characters, but particularly in Richard III, they tend to fill a role of a crying, mourning victim. Mike wrote these roles very differently. He gave a lot of meat to your role in particular. And as the play goes, your character changes kind of the tone and the direction of some of the show. How did you, without revealing anything, how did you kind of bring that agency and ultimately that power to your role as Anne?
Again, I think this roots to being able to be in the room with a new play at the inception or very near to, and having relationships with playwrights who are alive and like writing for you in a way. Shakespeare died so long ago, and like he didn't write anything for me. I feel, but getting to sit with Mike and saying like, hey, I think she's smarter than that. I think she's got more grit than we were able to have those conversations. And Mike is the kind of playwright who's open to having that with all of us about all of the roles, about what we think is authentic to that character. And we were getting rewrites and previews. We got a whole new scene. We'd already done 3 previews and got a new scene and put it up, And it is, I feel very blessed to be able to stand on the public stage and say something like, I am not a tossed off afterthought like in a Shakespeare play, where all the women are a bunch of objects and character foils and plot devices. And I get to do that, and I get to say that and look at women in the audience and see it reflected back to me. And that, I think, is a really special moment and something that is under the whole piece, this idea of agency. And it's something we had talked about too is, Mike started writing this play 4 or 5 years ago, before this big cultural turn that we've had in the Me Too movement and all of that, and how like even and Mike has a lot of pop culture references in his play plays that change, that keep changing with time. And that's another thing, like saying that, delivering that monologue now was different than when I did it in a workshop 2 years ago, you know, and getting to dig into it in those layers is very powerful, I think, and feels good. Like, it's something that I think needs to be seen on stage. Yeah.
Now, you mentioned you were still getting new scenes and line changes up through previews.
Yeah.
And I know you and Marinda have actually both done, and Shannon too, have both done TV. Both of you were on Gotham. I don't know if there was any overlap there. But how is that process from doing, you know, TV, episodic TV, or kind of one-off roles compared to live theater? I know you've also done a multi-format work, but kind of what is that process like that's different?
I love theater. I mean, there's nothing like it. TV is cool too. It is very cool. I mean, I want to do more of it as well. And I mean, you know, everyone gets to see it. You get more, you know, exposure, whatever, that way as well. But, and I mean, I love both mediums, but theater, just to be with people, it's about like community and like reaching people, and it's making contact that you can't do through a screen. So, I mean, and the preparation is totally different. I feel like I get so nervous, like if I have to be on a set, it's like, just know your lines and just say, you know, your 2 lines, Mr. President, or, you know, whatever, you know, whatever. And it's actually very nerve-wracking to me sometimes. But with theater, I mean, it's live, and the great thing is like these two, they're so good. He is so good, like just being spontaneous on the spot. Like he responds to the audience, like someone sneezed, and he was like, "Bless you," like, you know what I mean? That you can do, and it's so amazing, and I love it. It makes me so excited when those things happen. Yeah, so that's how I feel about it. Anybody else want to say something?
So speaking of multi-formats, Shannon, when are we going to get more installations in your YouTube series? Actually, why don't you tell everyone, give us a little background on why you created that and kind of what you were doing with it, and then tell me when we get more.
So I have a web series on YouTube called Stare at Shannon, and I started it because I was bored, and I was like, hey, it'd be really funny if I went through a drive-through in my wheelchair and filmed it. And then my friend called my friend. I was like, can you do this? And he was like, sure. And so he did. And so we went through the drive-through in my wheelchair and he filmed it. And then I was like, oh, I should do more of this because I'm bored a lot. And but in reality, the reason I wanted to do more, because I have this phrase where I'm like, well, people are staring at me anyway, I might as well be doing something cool. And so, I do all kinds of weird things, like go to a grocery store and eat food and see what I can get away with. Which is true, I was very sick, because I ate everything. I ate a cake.
Nobody stopped you?
No.
You have to pay? Did you just
opened it up?
I paid at the end, yeah. So I just,
the packaging.
I mean, no, yeah. So but I just like kept opening stuff, and the people at the store would help me. Like I made a sundae. I poured a bowl of cereal. I just made a sandwich. Like I just went to town, and like no one stopped me. They all helped.
Amazing.
And, I just was like, all right. And so oh God, I ate so much food. I ate a whole cake. It was ridiculous. It was the dumbest thing I've ever done.
Will you take suggestions?
It was bad.
Cool.
It was fun though, but you can watch that on YouTube. And then think about how sick I was. Yeah, so anyway, that's my channel. I'm really selling it. When will you get more? Well, I'm here a lot, so I'm not bored. But I'll be bored. I'll be bored on July 30th, so maybe then I'll have some time to eat more food in a grocery store.
I look forward to it.
But Shannon, you said something earlier about using comedy as the vehicle to like move things forward, or
Yeah.
or start the spark the conversation, or it makes it easier to sort of to metabolize like.
Yeah.
the issues around the issues. You know, I don't.
Yeah.
for
Well, I
lack of a-
mean, disability is not a fun thing to talk about, which you definitely touched on earlier.
Right.
It's like not sad, right? So, but but comedy is not. So sometimes it depends on how good you are. Sometimes it's very, very sad.
Yeah.
I've been in a lot of improv shows that were very sad.
Oh yeah. we've
Yeah.
all seen
And
it.
you have an improv group.
Yeah, I mean a couple, and a couple sketch groups, but so there's a lot of sad comedy going on. But it's a very good way to kind of break down a barrier that is not fun to talk about, and kind of allows you to talk about what you're doing versus the disability of it, and I think that people are then seeing me as a comedian versus seeing my chair first and then a comedian. So I think I like comedy for that reason.
Wonderful. At this point, we're going to open it up to audience questions. We have a microphone in each aisle if you want to approach the microphone, and we'll do Q&A. While people, if they're going to ask questions, while people are doing that, I have a couple of fun kind of rapid fire questions. We'll just burn through them pretty quickly.
Can I just say one thing about questions, though? I mean, one thing that I say to anyone is ask whatever you want, and anything you're afraid to ask, don't be afraid. Like we'll answer anything, unless
Well,
we don't
Gregg
want to.
will.
We'll say.
Right, Greg.
Yeah.
Greg will.
So yeah. So go for it.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah.
Okay. Who is most likely to try and get everyone to go out and party after a show or a practice?
Not me. I'm on a train.
I feel like Greg.
What?
You're the one that brought it up last night.
Well, I don't know. So it's Alex Bro plays Eddie in who couldn't be here today. It's just the two of us, and
Guys.
you know, we're guys, and you know, we're doing our thing, and the ladies are just like putting on music, and we hear them laughing and having a great time. They have a case of rosé in their dressing room. Like, I don't think they're drinking before the show, but after the show for sure.
As deputy, you can have one beverage
What?
before a show. It's true.
The writer.
Amazing.
Yeah, I knew that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have a question.
So what book are you reading right now?
Oh, I'm reading The Alchemist. I'm slowly reading it, but yes, I'm reading that right now. I'm almost done. It's good. Late to that train.
Sasha, I think we have a question.
Great job, you guys. Now I really got to go see the show.
Yes.
So this question really could be for anybody, but you mentioned doing like ad libs and sort of being really present. And I was curious in particular for Shannon, like wheelchairs, they can break down sometimes and you get equipment failure and stuff happens. And I thought it was really cool in that scene how you used it for a really good comic effect, like Corey was saying, the going back and forth. But did you ever your battery runs out in the middle of a scene, or your wheel, you get a flat tire, or does that ever happen?
I have solid rubber tires, so I make sure that doesn't happen. Well, one thing that was crazy in the show is that we got a veneer put onto the stage, and so my wheels were crazy squeaky, and it was so terrible. I definitely was like the center of the show.
What was our tennis shoes?
Yeah, it was everything. It was bad.
Yeah.
It was bad news bears. But so that was a little stressful. No, my batteries never died. I had to get wheelchair repairs that my insurance wouldn't pay for. That was a stressful time. That has nothing to do with the show. I don't know why I brought that up. It's fine now. Oh God, I hate it. I hate talking. So glad I'm an actor. No, I think my wheel gets caught on stage a bunch of times, and I just kind of push through it and pretend it didn't happen. The answer to your question. I am so sorry. I apologize.
I'm sure it will. Do you ever feel like it's like you have to educate other people? So if something, if you fall out of your chair, which does happen from time to time, before you realize you're okay, but then everyone else is gonna get freaked out, and your main job is to like reassure them this is okay, this happens.
Oh wow.
Do you ever have that kind of feeling about that particular thing happening or other stuff like that?
No. I wear a seatbelt. I have seen people fall out of the chair. I have never fallen out of my chair. Knock on wood somewhere. Yeah. No, I mean, I think Greg and I have talked about this a bunch of we were in rehearsals and we would allow anyone to ask us questions because you do often have to educate because it's just not something people are around. And we went out to lunch and Marinda and Sasha were talking about how they never really notice how many stairs there are in the city because it's just not something you realize. Like, I realize it every day when I'm in the P elevators. And so it's like, it's just kind of that stuff that, yes, I feel like there is an educational piece of it, but it's not something that like I ever feel burdened by or anything like that. I like having those conversations because it's, Greg can talk more about that, but I'd rather you ask me than don't and just assume. Yeah. Because we all know that phrase. Am I allowed to say ask at Google? Well, I just did.
Yeah. No, but I think what you just mentioned is, I mean, I'm not a wheelchair user, but again, I'm constantly negotiating that relationship of like, anytime I meet someone new, we do this sort of strange social pas de deux where it's like, I know you see me and you're clocking something and should we mention it? And I have to put you at ease and let you know that I'm an actual person and can talk and whatever, do all these things, and I think that's just part of the experience, but I'm actually fascinated by that exchange. And again, that's why I think theater is a great vehicle for this sort of exploration because if we're always in relation to an audience, as to say, well, people, right, and negotiating that, theater is sort of an explosion of that idea where there's a frame and you can have control over sort of the story that you're telling. So that's just a way for me to sort of wrestle that beast down. And again, I can choose where I want to engage and disengage. And I just happened to start a company where like the whole purpose is to be a platform for conversation. So at this point in my life, I may be talking more about it more than I like or should. But I think that's just the need is there. And again, what art does, what theater does in particular, is create community, as Marinda said, and creates an opportunity to discuss. Right? And I think rather than say, let's talk about disability, we're talking about this particular play where disability and several other issues are present, So if it comes up, we'll talk about it. And if not, we'll also just talk about the play, So I think I'm really interested in that sort of overlap, that exchange, and that synergy.
Wonderful. I think we have a question here, Maddie.
Hi, thank you guys again so much for coming. We're all so excited to have you here. So you've already answered this question a little bit, but I was really excited to ask. But I wanted to talk again about using comedy as a storytelling device because the show seems so funny while also tackling really difficult issues. And I just wanted to ask if there were any challenges with that or if there was any worry like that the audience may like misinterpret jokes or if you were ever worried about like trivializing anything. So that's my question.
Remember?
No.
You can just refuse.
Yeah, no, I was, again, yeah. I think just from myself, and it was a conversation with Mike and Moritz, the director, and everyone. We opened it to the cast. Like, again, like we're hitting on things like, there's some language that might be considered offensive in the show. There's, but everybody's fair game, basically. And for the comedy to be successful, you really have to lean into it. You can't shy away from it. You have to be as sort of mean or rude or insensitive through the character, right? Because it's a very respectful ensemble of wonderful people. But I think in order for that comedy to work, it has to be played seriously and for all it's worth. So again, and we had to have those discussions, and I think everyone on that stage and in the process is game to do that. If someone wasn't, then they wouldn't be involved in this. I mean, again, that's intentional from from my point of view, to sort of really tackle that. And again, it's hopefully we are getting laughs. Like, it's a funny play, and Mike has done a fantastic job. And what that does is bring people in, right, and gets people on our side until the great dramatic.
So then we can punch
him in the gut
later.
Yeah, you know. But hopefully it gets people. I mean, again, we had a benefit night Tuesday night, and again we had this wonderful talk back, and this woman was really articulated her whole sort of emotional process throughout the play of like being able to laugh and then feeling conflicted, but it got her thinking, and it got her thinking in a new way, which, regardless of the subject matter, any great piece of art should do. That's the desired effect.
Thank you. Thanks. Back to a couple questions. Again, feel free to approach the mic if you have any. What is your greatest extravagance? Like, what is that thing that you're gonna splurge on or treat yourself with?
I'm going to Jamaica.
Yes.
Well done. Well done.
I booked it, and for the 30th, so the day after we close, I am on a flight to Jamaica. I'm taking myself for my birthday. Yes. Because
When's your birthday?
July 17th.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Happy
I
early birthday.
accept gifts.
That's right.
Yeah. So that's my extravagance right now, and it's great. It's great to have a vacation planned.
Yeah.
Like, I'd never really do that. And I'm like, it's something to look forward to. So I recommend if anybody's able to do that.
Yeah.
What is a word or phrase that you overuse?
Oh God. Probably so many of them.
I think I say indeed a lot. Indeed.
Like I say that, like just like that.
Yeah.
I don't know if have
Have you heard me say that?
You don't do that because I've never heard you say it.
Yeah.
How did you say that?
You're just now.
Maybe
but-
just in my head.
Whoa.
Or a word or a phrase you think other people overuse that kind of grinds.
Oh, I overuse yas.
Oh, but it's so
Yas
good.
to everything.
I feel
Over
supported when you
that.
say that to me.
Oh, well, good.
Yeah.
Well, that's why I say it. I mean, it is a support, it's affirmation.
It is,
it's
it is,
all of
it
the
is,
above.
it
It's like,
is.
you go, girl, it's everything. So
it up.
that's why. And I use it for everything. So, yas. So probably too much.
Oh, you can't use it.
What's the best gift you've ever gotten? I know you're giving yourself the gift of Jamaica.
Yes, that's it. Thank you. You answered my question. Answered your question.
You're about to have a kid.
I know I'm about to
Yeah,
have a
that's
kid.
congratulations.
Thank you. No, I was thinking it, but I didn't want to go there because that's overseas. People always say that. You know? No, it's
You have
great.
to be like, oh, my
I know.
kid is the best thing.
No, my wife and I are expecting our first. She's due end of August, so yeah, that's pretty freaking cool.
All right.
Yeah.
If you were a candy bar, what candy bar would you be?
Does it have to be a candy bar?
No, it can be any candy.
Okay, Skittles.
Nice.
Oh yeah.
Well done.
Cat. I would be a dark chocolate bar with almonds and a little
Almond
salt.
Joy?
No.
That's cool.
Good dark chocolate, like dark chocolate.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not even a fan of this candy bar, but I would say a whatchamacallit.
Oh, love those.
Yeah?
Also Carmelos.
Stretch it out.
It's just like caramel for days.
What's in a whatchamacallit?
I don't know, but
It's
I
like
feel
nougat and
I feel like that sort of sums up me.
Oh, okay,
Right? Exactly. People are like, huh? What is
I
that?
mean, I can't remember the last time I saw that.
Like weird, I like it. Do I like it? I don't know.
yeah.
You know? Yeah. What about you, Shannon?
Oh gosh. Well, I like so many candy bars. That's the problem. I think I'm just thinking about all the candy I want to eat right now. I don't know. I'd probably be like a Nutrageous or something like that.
Outrageous.
Y'all bringing
Had a
me
red,
back.
had a red wrapper, right?
Sure.
Yellow, orange. I don't remember.
Yeah, I don't know.
Outrageous.
Maybe all
Yeah,
three.
something like that.
Oh, yeah. But Shannon also put me onto the Smurf gummies.
Oh, Gummy Smurfs.
Which
Haribo.
Yes.
Dude, Gummy Smurfs
are
are the
really,
best.
really good.
Just FYI.
Did those come back
Haribo.
because of the movies?
I don't
Or
know.
things-
They're
okay.
always in Five Below.
Okay.
I just eat them.
Oh,
Good.
Oh, we have another question.
So here's my rapid fire question: Olivier or McKellen?
whoa. As Richard III or just in general?
As Richard.
Oh man.
No, in all seriousness, though,
Oh, okay. Amazing. Dude, we get to dodge that one.
so you're setting this thing in high school and having all of the characters or most of the characters as teenagers. How do you think that affected the way that you're telling this story? And probably also, do you think that that might overshadow the message that you're trying to send to some people?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
I think that what we've found and what's come up in talkbacks is is the high school aspect about this show. And I feel like we all had that experience of high school, and we all harbor traumas that happened to us in high school, and that I think and I imagine being in the audience for this show, it all just comes right back as soon as you see the set and the lockers and the backpacks, and you're like, oh, I remember that athlete boy, and I remember that weird girl. I feel like it actually puts those of us who've been through high school back on that playing field, where we remember what the stakes felt like and what it was like to be unpopular and to want to be powerful and trying to find a way to do that. Now, actual high school kids, I think, who have seen the show, sometimes I feel like it's too close to their reality in a way, that it's like, as adults, I think we have the advantage of getting to look back at it backwards, but for them, it's very closer to the bone and interesting too in that way, where it feels potent. And Anne's storyline in particular is one that deals with, no spoiler alerts, but just deals with some serious issues for teenage girls.
Issues around sex and sexuality in a very real way.
And I had a conversation with a younger woman who in high school who saw the show, and it was serious for her. It's like, how did you prepare for that? How did it's like, yeah, thanks for reminding me. Like, this is reality out there. So, yeah, that's a great question.
I mean, I think I would love to see this play performed by people who are closer to the age, if not the actual ages. I think there's room for that. But I think Mike and I the playwright and I had a lot of conversations back and forth initially about who this play is for and what the type of audience is for. And again, the age range has been pretty broad, but I think this is what the version of this play is now for its premiere, and it's based on who started it. And I was far too old to play it, when the show started or was first commissioned. But again, I think I think we agreed because of Mike's language and people having an availability and skill to do that, we decided to go older. But there are plenty of talented younger people who could certainly play it. I think that would be really interesting. Now, what's great, this play will be out in the world. Like, it has been launched, right? And so, and that will be up to Mike to decide whether, if anyone approaches him, high school or college or whatnot, to do that, he can give it its blessing or not.
I mean, I'm sure high school would definitely be willing to do this. And I will also say, your story about the squeaking wheels, as a high schooler who did have to actually carry around disability equipment, that would probably make it a little bit more realistic.
Oh, you liked the element of the loud wheel.
It was just very loud, and you couldn't hear anything I was saying.
Yeah, that is a problem.
So
If you could dampen it, that would definitely help. In my case, it was visual impairment equipment. It wasn't too in the way, but it was definitely a hallmark of me.
Sure.
Oh, totally.
Yeah, very
I
nice.
totally get it.
Always
Thank you.
having to draw that that line between total reality and then kind of
Theatrical
cheating for the
reality.
stage.
Yeah,
Sure,
right.
yeah.
Dialogue.
We're not mic'd, so it was a little too loud.
So we are actually at time. I just want to say thank you guys so much for taking the time. I know they have a show tonight at the Public Theater. I highly encourage you all, get tickets, go watch the show.
We're running through
Support
July
them.
29th.
Yeah.
So come check us out.
Yeah, it's a really, really wonderfully funny show. So thank you guys. Thank you.
Thank you.